Welcome to episode 3 of Weekly Takes. This is Rival Indigo, and I'm going to give you 3 different subjects and what my thoughts are briefly on those. To start with, I'm apparently a bot on Twitter. Yes, yesterday, according to Twitter, not only did I get rate limited in extremely quick fashion, but at a certain point last night and early this morning, Twitter was actually telling me that I was suspicious activity, and to protect the users of the platform, I was not allowed to do certain things. I couldn't tweet, I couldn't like tweets, and then of course if I was rate limited, which happened every 5 minutes, I couldn't even view Twitter. So according to Twitter, for a brief period of time, I was in fact a bot, which is quite hilarious. Elon Musk is one of those people who is extremely smart, but I don't find them to be very intelligent. He's one of those people that has a lot of great ideas, and he's very, again, smart about them. Like, he knows how to do a lot of things and what things should be done. But he's not somebody who, it seems, can take information in front of him and quickly process it and see how those things are going to turn out, or process how the use of his platform, how it actually works for most people on a daily basis. I was at the gym, so, quote unquote, touching grass. I was at the gym the other day when they decided to do this rate limiting thing. And initially it was set for 600 tweet views. So that included your notifications, that included you scrolling the feed, and apparently looking at your own profile. But 600 views for unverified users, and of course I'm not an idiot, so I don't pay for Twitter. And within 20 minutes of being on the treadmill and off and on pulling my phone out, scrolling through the feed, and then maybe responding to something, liking some tweets, whatever, I was already rate limited. And it's funny because there are people out there that thought this was amusing, and in some ways it is. I don't actually have a very deep connection to Twitter these days. I don't care that much about it. But I do find things that are hypocritical or nonsensical or just don't make sense. They bother me. This tweet limiting, like I said, the fact that it could occur in the time, not even half of my time on the treadmill, just, hey, I'm going to check Twitter. I'm going to scroll through some things. I run a YouTube channel and an Instagram and a Twitter. These things are all connected. So I kind of want to see what's going on in the world, respond to stuff, kind of keep my profile relevant on some level. And yet I, in that very short period of time, can't even see Twitter anymore. And I see this one person. I used to follow her. I've always liked her YouTube, and I bought her character skin in Warzone 1 years ago. But Alex Zedra had posted, if you look at more than 600 posts a day, you got a problem. Maybe Twitter is trying to get you to go touch some grass. And I responded to this, and I said, Alex, I'm literally on the treadmill at the gym right now and got limited. I don't think you realize how quickly 600 tweets pass by. And so far I've gotten like 405 likes on this tweet and quite a few responses. Apparently some people started having some sort of fight in the comments, and I checked out. I don't care. But it's one of those things like, you need to go touch some grass. Well, okay, you're a verified profile. So first of all, you are not going to have perspective, because at that time she had a limit of 6,000 posts. She might have already seen 600 plus posts that day, or ended up seeing them, and just wouldn't know because she wouldn't get rate limited. The other aspect of that, it's a little weird to me that somebody would say this, because they run their brand off of social media and streaming and YouTube and these things. So it's kind of crucial to be able to have people see your tweets, to be exposed to your social media profile. So I find there's some hypocrisy there from people that, rely on a lot of this stuff, or at least it's part of their brand, and then they're telling people, oh, go touch grass. Well, I do agree with that in many cases. But the fact that I could get rate limited, again, while out at the gym working out and just taking a break on the treadmill, and looking at stuff, that tells me it wasn't a very good idea. And eventually Elon kind of figured that out and started increasing the rates, and eventually I believe got rid of them. But it still made Twitter a mess for the entirety of the day for no real good reason. I know that they want to push people into subscribing, and that's just not going to happen. I'd rather just do without Twitter. This topic is a little bit more controversial. This is coming from an ABC News article, and it says, most Americans approve of SCOTUS ruling restricting use of race in college admissions. This is according to an ABC News, I believe it's Ipsos poll. And it says, on Thursday, the Supreme Court set new limits on affirmative action programs in cases involving whether public and private colleges and universities can continue to use race as a factor among many, as they say, in student admissions. A little more than half of Americans, 52%, approve of the U.S. Supreme Court decision on restricting the use of race as a factor in college admissions, while 32% disapprove and 16% saying they don't know. A majority of Republicans, 75%, and independents, 58%, that's actually a pretty good number there, approve of the ruling, while of course a distinct minority of Democrats approve at 26%. So it's very simple. You don't right the wrongs of racism by using racism. Anytime you are trying to set or fill quotas or rebalance things based upon race by using race as a factor, that is pure and simple systemic racism, institutional racism. And eliminating that is the right way to go. You literally need to use the best scores, the highest achievement, use merit and merit alone when determining who gets into these higher education programs and is going for these degrees, because you want the best and the brightest. It should not matter what their skin color is, what their race is or background is. You go blindly by accomplishment, and you let those people become the best and brightest, going out there getting degrees that hopefully have some use. Many of them unfortunately don't. And then go out and benefit society, help the economy, build a business, just do something important. But because they are the most skilled, the most studied, the people who did the most to achieve that admission and then can do something with it. So it's actually quite, gives me hope when you see that the majority of Americans, even if it's a slim majority, but especially when I think the most important number there is that 58% of independents, because those are the people that don't specifically align normally with any one party. They at least don't register with one party or the other. And so to have the majority of them by a decent amount approve of this, that to me is the most important thing there. Of course, you're going to get 75% of Republicans because they're the ones that are thinking clearly on this and then acting most on it, and then independents. And then, of course, you're going to have a minority of Democrats. But even 26% of Democrats approve of it as well, because there are some sane people over there who get it. But anyways, not to get too political, I just thought it was interesting that when you do these polls, even by a mainstream outlet like ABC News, who is in no way right-leaning or conservative or anything like that, that you still get these numbers. You still get a majority of Americans approving of this. So for all the controversy that the mainstream media would like there to be about this ruling, it just doesn't seem like the American public agrees with them. Last but definitely not least, I want to talk about the new Star Wars films, the next set of films that will feature Rey, which I don't know if you follow me or follow me on Twitter, which is a little more difficult these days, obviously, but you'll know that I am actually a fan of the sequel trilogy, that I'm a fan of the character Rey. The sequel trilogy is, in fact, what made me a Star Wars fan, got me into it at all. Growing up, I was always a huge Star Trek fan. Never cared about Star Wars at all. I had seen the originals. I thought they were kind of silly and goofy in comparison to Star Trek. And the prequels did not help that at all. Literally, objectively, sorry I use the word literally, but objectively, some of the worst mainstream filmmaking that you could ever find was the Star Wars prequels, which to me is an example why you don't let George Lucas have full creative control of something. Anyways, this new information is of course coming from Screen Rant, and they're talking about how Rey's new Jedi Order Star Wars movie proves that the franchise is learning from one mistake made during the sequel trilogy concerning the character of Luke Skywalker. Again, I won't agree with most of this because I actually liked Luke's character arc, and they even admit that here, that it is hotly debated that many hold his character arc in high esteem, arguing that Star Wars The Last Jedi is the most complex and well-written the character has ever been, while others tend to think the sequels completely abandon George Lucas' vision for Luke Skywalker. So at least they admit that it's not cut and dry, nobody likes this, because I do. I did not think The Last Jedi was a perfect Star Wars movie, but it was actually, in my opinion, it was still really good, especially the things regarding Luke Skywalker's character arc and Rey's development as a Jedi. There was some peripheral stuff going on. It was kind of like, whatever, especially whatever was going on at that casino. That I was like, okay, can we get past this and get back to the good stuff? But regardless, it's like I said, it's not a perfect movie, but I still very much enjoyed it, and as part of the trilogy, I still think it's a good middle chapter. I think that the way that we saw Luke's character move on was actually quite epic. I love that whole battle with Kylo Ren, and then just him focusing his force powers and turning himself into a ghost and all that stuff right there. I thought it was quite awesome. But there are people who are never going to be happy with anything, and to say that they completely abandoned George Lucas' vision for Luke Skywalker, well, of course they did. Lucas abandoned Star Wars when he handed it off to Disney, so he doesn't really get a say in what happens anymore. It's creatively somebody else's work. And I don't like Rian Johnson's approach to handling the criticism very much, but at the same time, like I said, I think that they were good movies, and Rey is actually my favorite Star Wars character, so I'm glad that when it comes to a new series of films that she's still going to be involved. And what they're saying that she's going to be doing here is she's going to actually be rebuilding the Jedi Order, and the film is provisionally titled New Jedi Order. So apparently they feel like this is the right move to make with Rey, because Luke did not get this. They say that the mistake with Luke's character was that we essentially never got to see him building his new Jedi Order after the original trilogy films. And I'm like, well, yeah, because these films take place decades later. And a whole different story unfolded. You didn't get a continuation directly after the original trilogy and showing, he built a new order and all these things happen. That's all assumptions, I believe, made off of novels that were once considered canon. And so I feel like we make a lot of assumptions about what was supposed to happen, but in The Last Jedi and the rest of the trilogy, we actually see what really happened. The order really never took off and got off the ground, and Luke himself kind of moved away from doing that work at some point. So either way, I always feel it's interesting, because it's good to have criticisms of your favorite franchises, but it's also good to recognize you are a fan and you don't actually have creative control of it. So things are going to be different than you might expect. And in this case, they did the sequel trilogy in a way they felt served Star Wars better. And I think that in many ways, if we get a little break here, they're saying this is going to be 2026. That will have been a decent amount of years since, The Rise of Skywalker. So it'll be a good little break there, and then returning to the mainline Star Wars films. And if they do it right, I think more people will embrace the sequel trilogy. I mean, you see the reaction. Some people have re-embraced the prequel trilogy because basically out of spite for the sequels. I think that's really dumb, because the prequels are quite bad objectively, regardless of what came after. But I think that if you use the sequel trilogy and what was established there, and you do something really good with the next ones in a way that people overall like, then I feel like they'll end up turning around and being more fond of the sequel trilogy than they were when it initially came out. Thanks again for checking out Weekly Takes. If you enjoyed this minicast, please subscribe to the channel for more, check out the playlist for past episodes, leave a like, and if you have anything to say, any feedback, definitely leave a comment, and we'll see you next week.